सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। So yesterday we were seeing the same topic, Dhyana Swarupam and Dhyana Phalam. So at the seat of meditation, withdraw the mind from the worldly preoccupations and then focus the mind upon the self, upon consciousness. Yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamassthiram tatastato niyamyetat atmanieva vasham nayet. Bring back the mind again and again. It will go out because mind is chanchalam, mind is asthiram. It is fickle, it is unsteady, it is restless. All our minds are like that. It goes out because it has been habituated. The mind, it has been habituated for the mind to go out. Because for so many births we have lived in ignorance. Every time we have sought happiness in the outer world. So therefore, it takes time for the mind to realize that the happiness is within. Shanaihi shanaihi uparamet buddhya dhritigrihitaya. So with your educated mind, with your educated intellect, with your intellect which is dhruti grihitaya, which is strengthened by the study of the scriptures, by constant contemplation upon the scriptural truths. The intellect which is strengthened by thoroughly churning the truths of the scriptures. An intellect which is free from all kinds of doubts. An intellect which is convinced that the real happiness is within. An intellect which is strengthened by the day-to-day experiences of life. Day-to-day experiences analyzed in the light of the scriptures. Such a strong intellect alone can bring the mind from the worldly preoccupations within. Do this. And what is the experience you get? How do you know that I am progressing in spirituality? Atyantam sukham ashnute. You start experiencing peace, which is atindriyam, which is buddhigrahyam. A peace which is born out of your wisdom, buddhigrahyam, which is atindriyam. And the unique feature of this peace is it doesn't come and go. Unlike the sense pleasures, indriya sukham, what is the nature? When you are in contact with the senses, you experience the pleasure. And when the contact is missing, that pleasure is also missing. Whereas here, this joy is not born out of any sense contact. Then it is born out of wisdom. The peace which is born out of wisdom remains with you. It doesn't come and go. And it is deep. It is fulfilling. It is of the nature of contentment. You feel as though there is nothing else which is more valuable than this. Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate na adhikam tataha. You start feeling that this is the greatest gain I can ever obtain in this world, in this life. And then what happens? Slowly, slowly you start valuing spirituality. You start valuing meditation. Earlier you used to say, I am very busy, I have so much of work, I have so much of duty, I don't have time for meditation. But once you start experiencing this joy, this bliss, and naturally because of this joy, your contacts with the world also becomes more and more efficient, more and more refined. You start seeing the results. In all your day-to-day contacts, your relationship starts improving. Your personality starts improving. All these results when you see, slowly, slowly you start investing more and more time in meditation. You know that if today I don't meditate, my day will be a waste. If today I don't meditate, my contact with the world will be unfulfilling. My contact will be wrong. I will not be able to make the right contact. I will not be able to handle the situation in the right way. And you know that it is because of meditation, the meditation which gives you peace of mind. This peace and purity of mind is necessary for handling difficult situations in life. Once you start valuing it, then you will never miss your meditation. You may miss everything else. You don't mind even giving up your breakfast also. But meditation, you will definitely do. Yam labdva cha aparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha. So this happens slowly. Yes. So now, such a person, how does he look at the world? Now here we are again talking about dhyana phalam. Let us chant 29 and 30. Sarva bhutasthamatmanam Sarva bhutani chatmani Ikshate yoga yuktatma Sarvatra samadarshanaha Yo mam pashyati sarvatra Sarvam cha mai pashyati Tasyaham na pranashyami Sachamena pranashyati Sarva bhutasthamatmanam Sarva bhutani chatmani Ikshate yoga yuktatma Sarvatra samadarshanaha Yo mam pashyati sarvatra Sarvam cha mai pashyati Yes. Now here is a person who has reached the very perfection pointed out by meditation. What has he become? Verse number 27 you will see, Brahma Bhutam. He has become Brahman. Knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. Knower of the truth becomes truth. Knower of God becomes God. So such a person, when he looks around in the world, now he is the one who has understood himself to be the infinite immortal consciousness. He has realized himself that he is not the body. That body will someday or the other perish. But I, the pure consciousness, will never perish. He has realized this truth. Now when he look at the world, what is his experience? Ikshate, he sees. What does he see? Sarva bhutastham atmanam sarva bhutani cha atmani. He sees the self in all beings and all beings in the self. He sees the Supreme Self in all beings and all beings in the self. Meaning, now see this, seeing A in B and B in A. This is possible only when there is only one entity. Either A or B is real, the other one is an illusion. In that case alone, this can happen. Seeing A in B and B in A. Seeing the self in all beings and all beings in the self. To give an example, seeing water in the wave. Seeing water in the wave and wave in the water. Is it possible? Both are possible because wave is an illusion. What exists is only water. Wave is the name given to a form. But actually, is there something substantial called wave? No. There is only water. Isn't it? So therefore, both are possible. Seeing water in the wave, it is possible. Seeing wave in water, that is also possible. Right? Now take any case where A and B are different and both are real. And then apply this. You will find it doesn't make any sense. Right? So what does it mean? It means there is only self. So here there are two entities given. One Sarva Bhutastham, all being. Other one Atma. Now among this, which is the real one? Atma alone is real. Supreme Self alone is real. Consciousness alone is real. Rest, everything is an illusion. Illusion playing upon the reality. Illusion playing upon the reality. What is the definition of consciousness? It is Sat. Sat means existence. It is absolute existence. If consciousness is existence, what should be matter? Remember the two entities we had taken during our discussion. Matter has to be Asat. But the matter appears to exist. Actually, it is not its existence. It is the borrowed existence of consciousness. So in Vedanta, there are two stages of teaching. In first stage, we say there is consciousness, there is matter. In the final stage, we say there is only consciousness, matter is an illusion. What exists is only consciousness. To prove this point, see the world. Where do you see the world? In your mind? Yes. Without the mind, can you see the world? No. In deep sleep, you are not aware of the world because the mind is not available. The world, which is nothing but matter, is seen upon the mind. Where does the mind exist? It exists in consciousness. So therefore, what is actually matter? Matter is nothing but consciousness alone. Because consciousness is the one which supports everything. This is the way logically we prove that there is only consciousness. The example of waker dreamer also proves the same point. In the dream, it appears as though the whole world exists. The dream world appears to be so real. But where are you seeing that dream world? In the dreamer's mind. It is nothing but mind. There is no such world. The world is nothing but a projection of the dreaming mind. Now where does that mind exist? Again, that mind exists in waker. Waker, who is none other than consciousness. The whole dream world is observed by whom? By consciousness. So ultimately there is only consciousness as the support. So now here is a Mahatma who sees this consciousness pulsating as life in each and every being, and he also sees all beings in consciousness. His consciousness is supporting every being, the whole world. So both ways he sees. Ultimately, the point is, he sees the play of self in everyone, in everything, everywhere. Ikshate. Such a person is a yoga yuktatma. one who is endowed with yoga, one who is endowed with the right vision of life, right understanding about life. So what is experience? Sarvatra samadarshanaha. Vision of oneness. Everywhere he sees only one. Ishvara darshanam it is called. And now see the next verse. Very interestingly, the same thing is put by replacing Atma with me. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. The one who sees me in all beings and all beings in me. Now similar sentence. Earlier it was said, the one who sees all beings in the self and self in all beings. Now here it is said, the one who sees all beings in me and me in all beings. So what does it mean? Atma is nothing but me. Self is nothing but me. Now here, who is the speaker? Lord Krishna. So who is Lord Krishna? Understand, Lord Krishna is right here now. As what? As the very consciousness in us. Don't say Krishna was born somewhere. How unfortunate I am that I was not born when Krishna was there. Krishna is there right now. The real Krishna. Now he is introducing, Bhagavan is introducing himself. Look, the consciousness in you, because of which you are conscious of everything, this consciousness in you is the real me. Now tell me, are you away from Krishna any time? This is the real Krishna. This Krishna, even if you want, you can't separate from you. It is not possible. Even when you forget him, he will not forget you. Even when you don't accept him, he still exists. Even in an atheist, this consciousness is there or not. The very tongue with which he says that there is no God, that tongue is functioning because of that consciousness. Isn't it? That very consciousness upon which the thought that there is no God appeared, that consciousness is this Krishna. Who can deny him? So Bhagavan introduces, I am that consciousness in you, Arjuna. The one who pays attention to this consciousness all the time with great reverence, with love, with devotion, with respect for him. Tasya aham na pranashyami sa cha me na pranashyati. For him, I am never lost. And for me, for him, I am never lost. For me, he is never lost. Meaning, he always remembers me, I always remember him. He experiences me every moment. He never loses sight of me. This is the job of a yogi. Every moment, feel that he is present. When the mind asks this question, where is God? I don't see. Arey Baba, this consciousness in you. This I in you. Is there any moment when you don't experience I am? The amness of I is always experienced by us, isn't it? I am, I am. First is I am, then comes everything else. First I am, then comes this world. This world which is experienced by me, which comes in my awareness, this I, my, which we are using constantly. Who is the support, substratum? Bhagavan says it is me. It is this consciousness. Nobody can deny it. Even a person who doesn't have eyes, no ears, even that person also can't deny this consciousness. This light of consciousness is ever present. Now, the glory of this Mahatma is being mentioned. Let us chant 31-32. Sarva bhuta sthitam yo mam bhajatyekatvam asthitah सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः. Yes. Now such a yogi, ekatvam asthitah, firmly established in ekatvam, in oneness, sarvabhuta sthitam mam bhajati. So when he looks around, when he sees people, what does he see? He doesn't see people, their imperfection, etc. No. He sees Mam, Sarva Bhuta Sthitam, Mam Bhajati. He worships everyone, he reveres everyone, because in all beings this consciousness is present as the very life in them. Even the greatest sinner he sees as an embodiment of God. Mam Bhajati, he worships, he reveres. Such a salutary change happens in his life. There is none to be criticized. Whatever has to be criticized may be the character of the person, but that character is something which is very insignificant. What is the real stuff? The real stuff is consciousness. The real stuff is not the body, not the properties of mind. No, the real stuff is consciousness. Just like the wave. What is the real stuff in the wave? It is not the form, it is not the size, no. The real essence is water. Now here is a Mahatma who has trained himself to see the essence in others. How did he train himself? By training to look the essence in oneself. In himself he has seen that consciousness is the very substratum, the very essence. So naturally he will see the same thing in others also. When I start seeing myself as body, what will I see in others? I will see the body only. Isn't it? What I see in me, I start seeing in others. What I start valuing in me, I start valuing others. If I start valuing mere dress and the appearance, I will start valuing only the mere dress and appearance in others. It is said, a bald man, his vision is always searching for people who are bald. Because he values hair, he doesn't have it. So those people who have it, he becomes jealous. Or whatever. He craves for it. What you value in yourself, you will value in others. It's a fact. Now here is a Mahatma who is valuing the self. He has known himself. So according to him, this body is something which will come and go. The character of the person also, yes, because of some misunderstandings, negative thoughts are there in him. Doesn't matter. But what is he? He is also Bhagavat Sarupa. What a beautiful word. Sarva Bhuta Sthitam Mam Bhajati. He doesn't see the nationality. He doesn't see the religion. He doesn't see the caste or creed or gender. No. Everything for him is insignificant, unimportant. What he sees is the touch of consciousness, that life principle which is most divine. So such a person alone can give that respect to other beings. Remember, not only human beings, all living beings. Sarva Bhuta. it is said. He cannot disrespect others, even if the other person may be a rank criminal. Suppose you are given, say, one ball of gold and another ball of gold wrapped with mud. Which one will you consider more valuable? Both are carrying, say, 1 kilo gold. One is as it is, the other is packed in mud. Which one is more valuable? Both are equally valuable, isn't it? Why? You are not seeing the mud, you are seeing the gold. Exactly same way. The packing may be different. We are all packed in different BMIs. Body is different, mind is different, intellects are different, ideas are different, concepts are different, understanding is different. They are all fine. But what is the content? What is that because of which the BMI is sustained, supported? That consciousness is the same. So such a person cannot but revere all beings. In 2002, there was an attack on Akshardham temple in Gujarat. I don't know how many of you remember. There was a terrorist attack. 2 terrorists, they entered into the Akshardham complex and then started firing indiscriminately. Around 30 people were killed. Somewhere around 100 people were injured. Commandos were called. These commandos, they killed these 2 terrorists. And then the chief of Akshardham, Swaminarayan, is called, what he called? Pramukh Swami. The head of Swaminarayan institution. So it is said there was a mass prayer for all those departed souls. And he sprinkled water in the places where these people were dead. And it is said that he sprinkled water in the place where these terrorists also were killed. Someone asked, Swamiji, why did you do that? He said, all lives are sacred. Where the terrorists were killed, he offered prayers. May the departed soul be at peace. What a divine thought, divine way of living. People thought that there will be clash now, Hindu-Muslim clash will be there. But the Swamiji acted so well. There were these bullet shots on the walls. Then someone, press reporters, they came and asked, Swamiji, would you like to make it as a monument, like Jallianwala Bagh, so many bullets, etc. Just for the remembrance that such a thing had happened on such and such day, etc. Swamiji said, no, within 4 days, we are going to fill up all these, bullet spots. People should not even know that such a thing has happened. They must forget it. Our culture is something, for 10,000 years we have been spreading peace and harmony. Just because of 2 terrorists, we don't want to spoil that, Now see that vision. Even the terrorists, they are nothing but embodiment of divine. Sarva bhuta sthitam mam bhajati. Such a person, what happens to him? Sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. Such a yogi experiences me every moment. Sarvatha vartamanopi means whatever be his stage of life. He may be a brahmachari, he may be a grihastha-ashrami, he may be a vanaprasthi or a sannyasi, whatever it may be. Whatever his profession may be, whatever his lifestyles may be, sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. He remains in me. He experiences me. He never loses sight of me. Bhagavan is praising that yogi. He says, Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yaha Arjuna. Arjuna, the one who sees everyone. Atmaupamyena, we are all one. The self in us is all one. With this vision of oneness, one who lives in this world. Sukham va yadi va dukkham. So when this vision of oneness comes, what happens? When somebody is suffering, you cannot say that person is suffering, let him suffer, his karma phala. No. When somebody is suffering, his heart suffers. This is called vision of oneness, identification. He becomes so one with all that suffering of someone becomes as though his suffering. His heart cannot feel pain when he sees the pain of others. Sukham vayadi va dukham. When others enjoy, he is also happy. When others suffer, he is also suffering. Just like in our body. When my hand suffers, it is my suffering, isn't it? When my leg or the head suffers, I don't say it is a leg which is suffering, let it suffer. No, it is me. Because throughout the body, it is me. In the same way, Atma upamyena. The Atma in each and every one of us, the self in each and every one of us, the consciousness in each and every one of us is one. Because of this vision, he feels samatvam. Bhagavan says, Sayogi Paramaha, he is the best, the greatest. There are many people who say the yogis who meditate in Himalayas, they are selfish, they are bothered only about their realization, their samadhi, they are not worried about the worldly problems, etc. It is a foolish statement. Nobody can enter into samadhi selfishly. Nobody can attain self-realization selfishly. Selfishness and realization, they don't go together. It is something like a dark sun. Can you have a dark sun or a bitter sugar? It is not possible. Selflessness is the path. Such a selfless person alone can attain samadhi. Such a selfless person alone can realize his self. Following the path of selfishness, nobody can progress in spirituality. So here is a verse which says, such a yogi, he feels the pain of others. He rejoices in others' happiness. For him, it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is the highest vision possible. The lowest vision is I and myself. Most selfish. A little more expansion, I and my family. At least he will sacrifice for his children and wife, husband, etc. It is better. Then you may say, I and my community. Fine. Little more, I and my state. Furthermore, I and my country. Good. But the best one is, I am a part of this cosmos. The entire cosmos is my family. This is the best. We are all children of God. We are one. Externalities may be different. Body level different. Culture different. Language different. But ultimately we are one. Very interestingly, in Bhagavatam, there is an episode of Prahalada. Many times this Bhagavatam, we just study only the story and we don't get into the philosophy at all. Especially the Bhagavata Saptaham, etc. Only stories they say. But what is the teaching? They don't mention. So there, as we all know, Prahalada was sent to the Gurukula. Hiranyakashipu, he had his own Gurukula. So, Shanda Amarka, they were the teachers in the Gurukula of Hiranyakashipu. So this little boy was sent there. And you know what he says? The kind of teaching which was given there, totally materialistic. Exactly the teaching which we are giving now to our children in our schools and colleges. Now what does he say? Nasadhu manasa mene swa para asad graha ashrayam. In Bhagavatam it is said, the knowledge given. He was a very good student. Prahalada was a very good student. Whatever the teachers taught, he studied it, by-hearted it, and whenever they asked, he vomited it out also. Teachers were very happy. But this boy was not happy. Why? Because the knowledge was, it only bred pluralistic vision. Swa, para, asat. Asat means inauspicious. Swa, my own. Para, others. What is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is all good virtue should come out of us, isn't it? We should become cultured. That is the purpose of education. And how can this culture come in us? Only when there is a vision of oneness. When there is a vision of oneness, love becomes automatic, sacrifice becomes automatic, service becomes automatic, everything becomes automatic, compassion becomes automatic, forgiveness becomes automatic. All these become natural when there is a vision of oneness. But when there is a vision of plurality, that I am different, you are different, what happens? Prahlada says, asat, most inauspicious, and uses another term, pashubuddhihi, animalistic thinking will develop with the vision of plurality. Everyone start becoming selfish. And that is exactly what we find in the society today. Everywhere there is corruption. Everyone has become selfish. There's so much of pollution in the environment. What is the root cause? Root cause is selfishness. And what is the cause of selfishness? The vision of plurality, that we are all different. In those time itself, everything is written in Bhagavatam. If this is the kind of education you will give, you will have these following consequences in the society. So in the Vedic times, in the Gurukula itself, this knowledge was given to them. Don't think this world is separate from you. You are a part of this world. Whatever you give to the world will come back to you. So do good, be good. It is nothing but a mirror reflection which you are seeing in the world. The world is an echo. This kind of knowledge were given. In the Gurukula, when the child is, say, 9 or 10 years, immediately he is sent to Gurukula. 10, 15 years he is trained under the teacher. And what kind of knowledge is given? Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitaha maghridak kasya suddhanam. Live a life of sacrifice. Live a life of giving, not taking. Always ask, what can I give to this world? This way you live. Because Ishavasyamidam sarvam, whatever you see is nothing but God alone. This is the kind of knowledge. Now just imagine what kind of generation grows up when this kind of knowledge is given to them. Isn't it? Right understanding has to be given. That is the importance of education. People should become cultured. Today, we have uncultured, educated people. Uncultured literates. So he becomes an IAS officer and he becomes number one corrupt. Now he knows how all corruption can be done at higher levels. So well educated he is. So what is he using his education for? For doing corruption at a higher level. That's all. A poor thief, he can only steal 100 or 200 rupees. That's all he can do. But educated, uncultured people are greater danger to the society. Isn't it? So this is the greatest of this knowledge. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukham sayogi paramo mataha. Swami Vivekananda used to say, if this world can be saved, only Vedanta can do it. Now see the beauty of this knowledge. Nowhere the mention of any religion is there, mention of any God is there. What is mentioned? Consciousness. Now is there any Hindu consciousness, Muslim consciousness, Christian consciousness? Just like there cannot be any Hindu space, Muslim space, space is one. In the same way, life is one, consciousness is one. So as Swami Vivekananda says, if the whole world can come together, only Vedanta can do it. Because Vedanta is free from all kinds of, stained of religions. The moment you say Allah, immediately all the Hindus are out, only Muslims. The moment you say Rama or Krishna, only Hindus come. But here is a term which is consciousness. Consciousness is neither, it doesn't belong to any religion. So Swami Vivekananda is absolutely right. It gives a secular knowledge. Anyway, now actually the teaching is over here. But now Arjuna has a question. Arjuna puts forward a question. So therefore Bhagavan had to discuss the topic Pratibandha. Pratibandha means obstacles. Now Arjuna is asking a question. Let us chant this question. 33 and 34. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram chanchalam hi manah krishna pramathi balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatva sthitim sthiram chanchalam hi manah krishna pramathi balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Now Arjuna speaks. Hey Madhusudana, yaha ayam yogaha tvaya samyena proktaha. This yoga which you are speaking, this samya yoga, yoga of quietening the mind. Samya means equanimity. Samya means oneness. So this yoga of oneness you are talking of. This yoga of quietening the mind, etc. Having equal vision, etc. This Samya yoga you are speaking of, Bhagavan. Chanchalatvat aham etasya sthiram sthitim na pashyami. I don't see any possibility of quietening the mind. You are saying quieten the mind, quieten the mind, quieten the mind, etc. Bhagavan, shall I tell you one thing? Chanchalatvat. Mind is fickle, restless. I don't see any possibility of quietening this monkey mind. They say the mind is like a monkey which is drunk and bitten by a scorpion. What will the condition of that monkey? Monkey by itself is restless. Now that monkey drinks, takes intoxication, becomes more restless, and again stung by a scorpion on the top of it. This is how Shankaracharya defines the mind. So Bhagavan, this is the kind of mind I am possessing, and you are talking of quietening the mind, taming the mind. Bhagavan, chanchalam hi manah Krishna. So here in the earlier verse you will find Madhusudana, the name which Arjuna uses. Commentators write commentary on that also. Why this particular name for Krishna has been chosen? So the meaning is, Bhagavan, it is very easy to kill an external enemy. You are the one who has killed Madhu, an Asura. It's very easy. But this fellow, called mind, it is very difficult. Hey Krishna, manaha chanchalam pramathi balavat dridham. So many adjectives. So many descriptions are given about mind. What is mind? Chanchalam, unsteady, fickle, restless. Pramathi, turbulent. Mathanam means what? Churning. It churns your body, your senses. It throws everything out of gear when it is disturbed. Pramathanashilah, pramathi. Balavat, very strong. Dridham, stubborn. Obstinate, unyielding. Tasya nigraham sudushkaram. To control such a mind, restrain such a mind. Sudushkaram, not just dushkaram. Not only difficult, it is very, very difficult. Vayoho iva, like controlling the wind. Example given is wind. Wind is something which you can't see, isn't it? In the same way, you can't see your mind. That is the biggest problem. Again, the power of wind is very unbelievable. If you see all these videos of tornadoes and what do you call that? Cyclone, storm. Nothing is impossible for this wind power. Bhagavan, controlling the wind may be easy, but controlling the mind is impossible. At least when the cyclones etc. come, you know, you can evacuate people from there. It is coming. But this mind, when it becomes disturbed, you don't know. And moreover, you can't evacuate yourself from the mind. Mind is embedded in you. You can't escape from your mind. From others you can escape, but what about your mind? Can you escape? So Bhagavan, I think it is impossible. So what does Bhagavan say? Let us see the answer. 35, 36. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate Asanyatatmana Yogaha Dushprapa iti me matihi Vashyatmana tu yatata Shakyo vaptumupayataha Asamshayam mahabaho Mano durnigraham chalam Abhyasena tu kaunteya Vairagyena cha grihyate Asanyatatmana yogaha Dushprapa iti me matihi Vashyatmana tu yatata Shakyo vaptumupayataha. Yes. Hey Mahabaho, mighty armed. The indication is you might have conquered so many enemies of the outer world, but the real enemy is your mind. And you are a true Mahabahu, mighty armed only when you conquer your mind. Hey Mahabaho, Asamshayam, what you are saying is 100% right, doubtless. What? Manaha durnigraham manaha chalam. Mind is very difficult to conquer, very difficult to control. It is fickle, asamshayam, no doubt. Interestingly, this is a psychology. Bhagavan has said control the mind, and he has given the technique also. Yato yato nischarati, etc., etc. Shanehi, all the techniques are given. And now here is a student who is doubting the very teacher. Now here is a beautiful diplomacy followed by Bhagavan. Whenever you tell something to someone, and suppose that person doesn't agree with you, he gives some counter argument. What you are supposed to do? You should immediately say, yes, you are right. Then what happens? That person is available for listening. Suppose you say, no, you are wrong. Then that person becomes shut off. His ego is hurt. He will not listen what you say further. The best thing is when somebody is criticizing you, questioning you, doubting you, immediately say, yes sir, what you are saying is absolutely right. Start from there. But, then you have to add one but, that's all. Then you say whatever you want to say. Asamshayam, Arjuna, what you are telling is 100% right. Now Arjuna is available. Available for listening. Available for guidance. What does Bhagavan say? No doubt, Arjuna, mind is like that. It is very difficult. But though it is difficult, it is not impossible. How is it possible? Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagena cha grihyate. The mind can be controlled if you do these two. What are they? Abhyasa, vairagya. Abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyasa means constant practice. Vairagya means dispassion. Very important guidance for the spiritual seekers. So at the seat of meditation, what are you supposed to do? Withdrawing the mind from the world and fixing the attention upon the Lord, upon the truth, upon consciousness, according to your type of meditation. Upon your Ishta Devata, that is also allowed. So two things, detach, attach. So what Bhagavan is saying is, detaching is possible through Vairagya, attaching is possible through Abhyasa. Viveka Abhyasa. Now let us first talk about Vairagya. What helps Vairagya? Remember, at the seat of meditation, you are supposed to withdraw your mind from the world. When will the mind get easily withdrawn from the world? Only when you see the limitations of the world. So what are the limitations of the world? Bhaja Govindam beautifully puts it in the first 6 verses. First verse. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi rakshati dukran karane. It shows the worldly limitations of the worldly knowledge. Dukran karane, your grammatical rules, your worldly knowledge is not going to help you at the time of death. At the time of death, is your worldly knowledge going to give you strength? Your worldly knowledge can at the most bring you an earning by which you can, you can fulfill the needs, etc. Roti, kapada, makan, yes. Your worldly knowledge can help you that. But at the time of death, can your worldly knowledge, everything other than spiritual knowledge, everything, can it help you? No. So this is the limitation of worldly knowledge. Next one. Moodha jahihi dhanagama trishnam kuru sadbuddhim manasi vitrishnam. A fool, understand the limitations of worldly wealth. This is the second one. Limitations of worldly wealth. Third one. Limitations of worldly pleasures. Sukhata kriyate rama bhogaha paschat hanta sharire rogaha. More and more you indulge in pleasures, your bodily vitalities are gone. You become an addict. You become a slave of your mind. You become a slave of your senses. Money gone, health gone, everything gone. Limitations of worldly pleasures. Fourth one, limitations of worldly existence. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tattva jivitam atishaya chapalam. Just like the water droplet playing upon the lotus petal, how uncertain is its existence, in the same way, worldly existence also. When a person is going to die, we don't know. And even that limited existence, limited uncertain existence, it is filled with pain, suffering, disease, etc. This is limitations of worldly existence. Then limitations of worldly love, name, fame, etc. Yavad vittoparjana saktaha tavan nija parivaro raktaha paschat jivati jarjara dehe vartam gopina prachati gehe. As long as you are an earning member, everyone will respect you. But the moment you are retired, you have no money, you become old, nobody will care you. This is the world. This is the limitations of worldly fame, worldly love, etc. Then limitations of worldly relationship. All relationships are finite. Somewhere it started, somewhere it will end. It's like a train journey. All our relationships, they are like a train journey. For some time we are together, but we don't know who is going to get down at which station. Isn't it? For some time we are together. Let us make our journey comfortable, but let us keep this in mind that either I will have to get down or my partner has to get down, whoever it is. This is the limitations of worldly relationship. When you are intensely aware of these limitations, then automatically there comes vairagya. Healthy detachment is called vairagya. Healthy detachment, meaning what? You are in the world, you are enjoying everything of the world, you are fulfilling all the responsibilities, you are making everyone happy, you love everyone, serve everyone, but at the back of the mind, you know the limitation. This is called vairagya. Vairagya doesn't make you bitter. Vairagya makes you enjoy the game of life. Just like the role you play in the drama. In the drama, you may be having a role where you have to die. You are shot and you have to die. You happily die, isn't it? Why? Because you know you are not going to die. It's only a role. You may be given a role of a beggar. You do it beautifully well, isn't it? Why? Because you know you are not a beggar. So in the same way, this person who has a vairagyam, detachment, he is the one who is going to play the game of life very well. Fine. So this is the way to develop vairagyam. Once you have vairagyam in good measure, you will find your mind easily withdrawing from the world. Because the mind knows there is no happiness there. The mind can easily withdraw. This is vairagya. And once having withdrawn, next stage is very, very important. What is that? After detaching, attaching is important. Otherwise, what will the mind do? Mere withdrawal alone will not do. You have to positively occupy the mind with the higher. And this you do through viveka abhyasa. So viveka and vairagya is what is pointed out here. Viveka means right understanding about life. What is real? If everything the world can offer is impermanent and unreal, what is that which is real? Turn the attention of the mind towards that. And what is that which is real? The very self in you, the consciousness in you. Turning the attention. Now Bhagavan says, abhyasa is necessary. Abhyasa means constant practice. As I said, constant practice is necessary because mind has been habituated in going outwards. Paranchi khani vyatranat swayambhu tasmat parang pashyate na antaratman. All our senses are directed outwards. So therefore, our mind's attention also goes outwards only. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam aikshat avrata chakshuhu amritattvam icchan. Very rare few you will find among mankind who turn their attention within, desiring immortality, and he finds it. Very rare few look within. Now this looking within needs practice. It doesn't come in a day or two. Every day you have to practice trying to look within, trying to withdraw the mind, fixing the attention upon the self. This needs practice. So earlier that practice has been mentioned. Yato yato nischarati manaschanchalam asthiram tatastato niyamyetat atmanyeva vasham nayet. This is called abhyas. Constant practice is necessary. So vairagya coupled with viveka abhyasa. What does Bhagavan say? Definitely grihyate. Mind will come under control. It is not impossible. But Arjuna, I will give you one important tip. What is the tip? Asanyatatmana yoga dushprapaha. Arjuna, if a person is licentious, immoral, uncontrolled, a person of loose living, forget about yoga. Dushprapaha. It is impossible. Whatever has been said, if you are not living a clean life, a pure life, a dharmic life, forget about spirituality, forget about meditation, forget about everything. It is not possible. Iti me matihi. This is my firm conviction. Asanyatatmana yoga dushprapaha. So, what is being said is, your life has been clean. Your life has to be clean. There is no choice. Your life has to be pure. You must lead a selfless life, a dharmic life. It is unavoidable. That is one thing. How to get it? Now here 3 important terms are used. Vashyatmana, yatata, upayataha, aptum shakyaha. A person who has these 3 will definitely get it. What is it? Number 1, vashyatmana, living a life of discipline, senses and mind under control. Number 2, yatata, striving, working hard. Not merely working hard, upayataha, through the right means. The one who is putting forth effort in the right way, in the right direction. Which is the right direction? The way shown by the scriptures, the way shown by the masters, the spiritual masters. So number 1, restrainment. Number 2, hard work. Number 3, employing the right means. If these 3 are there, definitely he is going to master his mind. There is no doubt about it. One has to conserve the energy, that is vashyatmana. One has to direct the energy, that is upayataha. And then one has to apply the energy. Conserve the energy and apply the energy in the right direction. Then you will definitely get it. It's not impossible. There are very many people who try to master the mind through various ways. And all of them have miserably failed when they don't follow the teachings of the scriptures. There are various techniques. Ultimately, they end up suppressing their mind. And therefore, the beauty of spirituality doesn't come. A beautiful personality, a dynamic personality, a cheerful personality, these are all the signs of spiritual growth. Such a thing is not there. He becomes a stunted personality, all dry, doing a lot of tapas, etc. In the name of spirituality, he is doing so many things. But what about the personality? There is no fragrance there. There is no joy. Everything is dry. Because of constant suffering of pain, the face is also, dull. Such yogis we find in plenty in society. Right. So what does Bhagavan say? Arjuna, it is possible. No doubt, manas, mind is chanchalam, dridham, balavat, pramati, etc. But there is a right way. Follow the right way, conquer the mind, and then be a yogi. Now Arjuna is asking another question, a beautiful question. A question which definitely we might be having in our mind. Suppose a person is striving and in this birth he doesn't attain that supreme, then what happens to him? Isn't his effort a waste? He has been striving, but before attaining that he dies. What happens to him? A beautiful answer is given, which we will see tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah.